Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back from the ad break. You are still watching Prime Live. Now, we welcome back Ronald Abvajee, who is our wellness expert, to be speaking about World Hepatitis Day. Now, this day or this event is aimed to raise awareness about the infectious diseases that affect millions of South Africans and also people worldwide. Now, as a wellness expert, he's going to be telling us or sharing with us his knowledge on the symptoms that we can look out for, the prevention, treatment of hepatitis, as well as how we can all contribute to the global fight against this serious health issue. Ronald, welcome to Prime Life and Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Great to be with you.
Great to be hosting you. Now, the only thing I know about hepatitis is the fact that it's a liver infection. So we don't know much about it, and this is why you are here to educate us. I know that it comes in different forms, including there's A, B, C, D, and E. Can you tell us the differences between these types and what it means?
Absolutely, and this is why it confuses so many people. Because the more complicated a topic is, the less we want to talk about it, because it's not as easy to understand, like this is a flu and this is a cold. But let's look at what is the liver. The liver is an organ in the body that serves over 500 essential functions. Did you know that about the liver?
It's that important.
It's that important. You know, from filtering of the blood to detoxing the blood to so many issues regarding our metabolism, fighting infections, etc. Which is why this is so important. And in South Africa, it is estimated that there are 3.5 million people that have been diagnosed and living with chronic hepatitis B, and over 600,000 living with hepatitis C. So it's not a condition that, something we just talk about once a year. It's something that we should be absolutely aware of. And the scary thing for me, before I go into the different types and what they generally mean, is that it's like a silent ninja, hepatitis, and a liver infection, because you often don't see signs and symptoms until you reach a chronic stage, and then it's a little bit late to address it, and then you're stuck in the chronic condition that you are living with. And hepatitis is a chronic inflammation or inflammation of the liver, the organ, the liver, through a viral infection. And the different types are definitely A, B, C, D, and E, with A and E being those that are short-term in their conditions and the treatment protocols and what you deal with from an infection perspective, because it has been shown that the body can work it out of the system, but also coupled with antiviral medications. B and C, now that's a different ballgame. That often leads to chronic inflammation and chronic issues with regards to the liver, which is what we call liver cirrhosis. And what that means is that vitamin B and C are caused by bodily fluid transmissions, and that's how they're transmitted, or blood transmissions, or blood transmitters. So basically, sharing of blood and sharing of bodily fluids. And A and E are caused by contaminated food and or water. And although A and E are short-term, E has been shown to be more severe in pregnant women, that can cause up to 20% of mortality. And D is caused, yeah, I know. D is only caused if you have hepatitis virus B. So it fast tracks the liver cirrhosis and the liver inflammation and liver disease.
Wow, that's a lot of information to process, but thank you so much. Now let's speak about the risks that are associated with each category that you just mentioned. Which one is the most severe? What are the risks?
Okay, so we'll categorize them, right? Let's say A and E, which are transmitted through contaminated food or water. And then let's categorize B and C. So we'll look at those two common categories. So when you look at the impact, A and E, we are saying to ourselves that, right, with contaminated food and water, we know that it does cause a lot of short-term infections of the liver and can lead to short-term inflammation, but can be treated and often has been shown, that our bodies will deal with that in a way that is not destructive to the liver in the long term. Whereas B and C become a little bit more intense. Those impact the core functioning and accentuate chronic liver disease. And the chronic liver disease means that it impacts the functioning of your liver, and you are stuck on antiviral medications to try to address it, to mitigate further damage for a very long time, which is why we call it chronic. So then many people associate hepatitis with only the liver, right? But because it's a viral issue, the liver is the primary organ that is impacted, but it can also affect kidneys, and other organs as well.
Hmm. That is, wow. So for people that obviously are listening right now, they say prevention is better than the cure. So what are the symptoms that we need to look out for, for us to know that, okay, maybe I might be struggling with one, two, and three?
Well, like I said to you, the symptoms often don't show in the acute and the initial stages. So
Mm.
you don't really know.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at symptoms, as it gets into a more serious stage or chronic stage, it could be vomiting, nausea, dark urine. But then again, you say to yourself, hey man, I'm
I
not
did.
drinking a lot of fluids, I'm sweating a lot,
Yeah.
I'm exercising. Is it, isn't it?
Mm.
But if you ask me about those symptoms, it's very similar to other conditions, illnesses, and diseases, right?
Mm.
So it does boil down to the following. If you have been, because I shared with you that sharing of needles leads to a lot of the hepatitis B and Cs, right? We know this. So sharing of needles, if you have multiple sexual partners, and if you are a regular imbiber or user of alcohol in its binging stages, because remember, alcohol consumption, there's binging alcohol, where you go on those things that people call weekend benders, and those that every day, I'm microdosing. Ronald said micro. I'm not saying microdosing puza. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is those that utilize it consistently, it leads to potential impact of the liver because it's toxin in the body and the liver is the main organ that's impacted, right? So when you look at those two, if you've gone for a medical procedure because you never want to share sharp instruments like razors or needles, drug users a lot of the time that are shooting up, cocaine, heroin, and so forth, and sharing of needles leads to a lot of hepatitis. And of course, if you've gone for medical procedure, if the equipment is not clean, there is a risk of an infection. So after you've gone for medical procedure, check and do a hepatitis B and C blood test. It's a very simple blood panel your doctor can do. If it's positive, you go for a liver enzyme test, and then you look at what are the antiviral medications you must take. And then, of course, be very wary if you are in areas where sanitation is not ideal. And we know that in South Africa, it's from the urban areas because our sewage systems and water systems are impacted. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't trust tap water to drink. So it's filters and so forth. And in a lot of communities, there's no opportunity for that. So we're talking about, there's fecal remnants in water, and often you go into the shower. And how many times do people go into the shower and decide to open their mouth and also rinse their mouth while they wash their face? Yeah, there's risks.
Wow. Okay. So this is, I think it's something that's really scary because you're saying there are no immediate symptoms to it. By the time you discover, it might be too late. So it's just maybe taking precaution or measures that prevents you from eventually having it, like the things that you mentioned. But thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now, World Hepatitis Day, the purpose of it is to just make sure that we're talking about it to prevent it from spreading. But I think the most important thing that I want us to highlight is the stereotypes around it, so that whoever is living with it is not afraid of seeking help, because of the hearsays that may be going around for people that are struggling with hepatitis.
Okay, so we know that it's a viral condition, and we know that it's not a genetic or hereditary condition, number one. Number two is a lot of it is associated with environmental factors, as I shared, with contaminated food and or water. And the third thing is that when you look at lifestyle choices, if you choose to consume alcohol, you are at risk of hepatitis. Fact. Number two, if you choose to have multiple sexual partners, yes, you're at risk of hepatitis. If you choose then to utilize shared needles and or razors, yes, you're at risk of hepatitis. So it's environmental, circumstantial, but it's also choices that you then make. My thing would be is we need to start talking about it like we are, and perhaps, take this offline, either on our platform or on yours, and say, this is what hepatitis A is, B, C, D, and look at what it actually means. Because a lot of the time, we associate hepatitis with babies, right? The baby's yellow, eyes are yellow, it's jaundice.
Yes,
But jaundice is not a primary indicator of hepatitis. Yeah, it's to do with liver functioning, but do you know that it's caused by an excess of a component or a compound called bilirubin in your blood? It's a buildup of that, right? But that could be short-term or it could be long-term. It's not a true indicator of hepatitis. And again, you'll only get that in the mid to the chronic stages of hepatitis. So education, talking about it, normalizing it, getting stories of people that have made choices in their life that are now dealing with the consequences of those choices. And for those that the choices were made for them because there's no clean water or sanitation that's ideal in the environment that they grew up in. So children are at risk big time.
Most definitely. I mean, for individuals that may be diagnosed with hepatitis, what advice would you give to them to, you know, prevent further damage of their liver?
Number one is you need to do this in conjunction with your medical practitioner. So you follow their lead, their guidance, their input, and their advice, and you follow their prescription. You need to stick to the antiviral medications that they give you so that you can address the viral component that cause the inflammation of the liver. Number two is depending on the severity and the degree, they say in the research, every 6 to 12 months, check the functioning of your liver. It's a liver function test. My thing would be is if I contract hepatitis, I'm checking every 3 months because I want to know, is my liver functioning optimal or is it declining, which means the inflammation and the infection is increasing if my liver is not functioning ideally and decreasing in functionality. Then I would also look at abdominal x-rays because I want to see what is happening on the liver, either MRIs or x-rays, whatever they may be, scans, to have a look at what is happening to the organ. And then finally, it's never forget your mindset. Because your mindset becomes critical, because if you now stress and you're not eating healthy, following healthy lifestyle habits, and you're compounding the stress because you're dealing with this, you're increasing your level of cortisol and not priming your body to manage your condition, which is why I say with hepatitis and any other disease, the battle of the mind is the first thing that you need to face. And lastly, if you do have HIV, you need to be extra careful because that will accelerate the impact on the inflammation and the liver condition.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, wait, you said, I think A and E, is it treatable?
So A and E are treatable, yes. And when we look at B and C, they do give you antiviral. They are treatable.
But then you live with it.
One is A and E are short term.
Yeah.
B and C, A and D are treatable. B and C become those that become chronic inflammation. So you might have to, yes, stick to that antiviral medication long term. The question is this, and I love this, there's a lot of cases where they're looking at, can the liver regenerate its cells and certain components? And the answer is yes. Doesn't mean it's going to regenerate a whole new liver, but that's why you look at the organ transplant list. There's a lot of people that are waiting for kidneys and that are waiting for livers.
And let's speak about the diet and exercises or the importance of diet and exercise. And if you do have maybe diet advice that you could give for people who are living with hepatitis, because I'm sure you should, change the way you eat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So number one is cut out processed foods. Remember, this is inflammation of the liver, and the liver's got over 500 functions in the body to do with detoxing, filtering, etc., right? And the more processed foods you have, the more pressure you're putting under the liver under, the more toxins or preservatives that you're putting into the body, which means the liver now has to work extra. And if the functioning of the liver is impeded because of hepatitis, it cannot do that. Then you want to focus on a plant-based diet where you're focusing on a lot of the green leafy veggies to maximize the body's ability of natural anti-inflammatory foods to decrease inflammation. And then lastly, you got to get the body to move. Because when the body begins to move, you maximize the ability of the functioning of the liver as well. And finally, if you do smoke and drink alcohol and have multiple sexual partners, that becomes stop, and stop.
And just lastly, before I let you go, as a wellness expert, what advice would you give to people that are living with hepatitis, but also viewers at home who are not living with hepatitis, just around the topic itself, on how they can prevent it, and what do you hope to see in the future regarding this illness that we're speaking about?
Because I said that it stays under the radar, so you don't get a lot of physical signs and symptoms. And what I do is, and I can only share to viewers what I would do, what I do. When I go for my annual medical and I go for my full blood panel, I include hepatitis B and C in my blood test, liver functions and liver enzyme tests to have a look at what is the functioning of my liver. Because when those tests are out of the normal parameters, it indicates something could be wrong, which leads to immediate further investigation. So I can try to catch it early, so I can mitigate chronic liver disease or cirrhosis. So it's about awareness, and to the best of your ability, if it's within your means, to get those tests done. And finally, it's that if there's a sanitation issue, just be aware, boiling the water becomes primary. Whether it be on a coal fire or on a stove, boiling the water to try to to sanitize the water is the best thing you can do, especially if you are consuming it. Avoid needles and be very aware of those lifestyle choices that you make, because it can come back to bite you in the liver.
Mm. Something very interesting, because I think every time we speak about testing, and we speak, I mean, we hear, or rather, we hear things from people who are obviously coming from unprivileged backgrounds to say, I don't have the money to go for tests and whatever. I came across a very interesting fact from a doctor that was speaking about it on social media, and they were saying that for those who have access to public clinics, you're actually entitled to go for a full body test at your local clinic. And I think people were saying, because we're scared of the nurses there because they can be a bit mean, but please do go, because I think when it comes to your health, we often hear things like what you don't know won't kill you, but when it comes to your health, what you don't know will actually kill you. But on that note, I think let's take a look at what Dr. Roloff Cross, I hope I'm not butchering his surname, who's an infectious disease specialist, will be talking about the importance of healthy nutrition and exercises for hepatitis. So let's take a look at that before we actually wrap up.
Doctor, if you do have hepatitis, any one of the variations, how important is healthy nutrition and the correct healthy nutrition, and of course physical activity?
It is very important. Okay, so typically patients with acute hepatitis, so hepatitis A or E, they tend to vomit a lot. They tend to not like fatty meals or meals with meat in it. So for these individuals, it's good to get foods in, like fruit, that has got a high sugar intake, but also fluid intake, and fruit also contains electrolytes and glucose and fluids. So that's important. But patients typically with hepatitis, because they're feeling nauseous, they've got a decreased appetite. And if you were to qualify for, say for instance, a liver transplant, you need to have a safe BMI. So for instance, you can't be underweight, but also you can't be overweight, because if you're underweight or overweight, you've got massive complications for a liver transplant, and these complications can lead to death. And that's why also, if you want to be a donor for your child or for your parents, and you are identified as a donor for a patient that can get a liver transplant, you need to have a safe BMI. So, but I'm derailing now from the point of hepatitis. Hepatitis nutrition is important. You get part of as mentioned, the function of the liver is to maintain normal glucose levels in your body.
Yeah.
Once you've got a diseased liver, your body struggles to maintain the glucose level in your blood if you're fasting. So you want frequent, small feeds that a patient can tolerate. And sometimes they don't tolerate the proteins and the fats, which is okay, but fresh fruit, that's essential. Okay, and then also trying to avoid drugs which the patients are using. And I think what a lot of the things the patients are forgetting is that we only see medicine as medicine that you buy from a pharmacy or which you have been prescribed by your doctor, but a lot of supplements are not regulated by SAHPRA. So when we talk about the liver, a patient literally needs to bring everything in the medicine cupboard to the doctor.
Wow.
That the doctor can see everything, because that is sometimes when you get a patient with hepatitis and you can't find the cause, in a lot of instances, if you talk to a gastroenterologist and hepatologist, they will tell you it's off-label health guru drugs that can cause hepatitis.
I mean, that was a very interesting watch, but overall, also the entire discussion was very, very interesting. I think I learned a lot about the different types and what needs to be done. So, Ronald, thank you so much for joining us and just for giving us free education and insight on this amazing topic.
Always a pleasure.
Viewers at home, I hope this was a beautiful way for you to also commemorate World Hepatitis Day, but most importantly, just a reminder of looking after oneself. And if you are already living with hepatitis, I don't think it's the end of the world. Ronald mentioned the precautions and measures that you need to take so that you can live a healthier lifestyle and so that you can live longer with the illness itself. But without wasting any time, let's go to a quick break. We'll see you right after this.